Hello students, you're welcome. Today I have brought to you a most devotional poem, Song of Radha, the Milkmaid, composed by Sarojini Naidu. Before going forth in the details of the poem, I will recite the poem first. So dear students, listen attentively. I carried my curds to the Mathura fair. How softly the heifers were lowing. I wanted to cry, who will buy the curds that is white as the clouds in the sky, when the breezes of Shravan are blowing? But my heart was so full of your beauty, beloved. They laughed as I cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 Govinda. How softly the river was flowing. I carried the pots to the Mathura tight. How gaily the rowers were rowing. My comrades called, oh, let us dance, let us sing, and wear saffron garments to welcome the spring, and pluck the new birds that are blowing. But my heart was so full of your music, beloved. They mocked when I cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 Govinda. How gaily the river was flowing. I carried my gifts to the Mathura shrine. How brightly the torches were glowing. I folded my hands at the altars to pray. O shining ones, guard us by night and by day. And loudly the conch shells were blowing. But my heart was so lost in your worship, beloved. They were wroth when I cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 Govinda. How bright the river was flowing. Dear students, how sweet the poem is. It is mesmerizing. It can win our hearts. So why not the heart of the beloved Radha, the milkmaid, who was enchanted by the beauty, by the worship of Lord Krishna. Dear students, introduction to the poet Sarojini Naidu. The lifespan of Sarojini Naidu is from 1879 to 1949. Dear students, Sarojini Naidu was a versatile personality. She is mainly known as an Indo Anglian poet and Indian politician. Apart from this, she was a freedom fighter. She fought for women's rights. She was an orator, she was a great leader and an administrator. So dear students, Sarojini Naidu participated in different fields. She is sobriqueted a title of Nightingale of India by Mahatma Gandhi, and she was called Bharat Kokla by Rabindranath Tagore. She wrote a play, Mahir Munir, at the age of 12 years. Dear students, it is inspiring that she wrote a play at the age of only 12 years. So, inborn genius she was. In 1905, she got published her collection of poems, The Golden Threshold, that became very popular. The Bird of Time was published in 1912. In this collection, there is a poem in the bazaars of Hyderabad. This poem was also much popular. The Spectred Flute was published in 1928. The Feather of the Dawn was published in 1961. Indian Weavers was published in 1971. She wrote on themes of love, life, death, patriotism and folk songs. She wrote also on children's poems. She was elected President of Indian National Congress in 1925 and first woman governor in India and that of Uttar Pradesh from 1947 to 49. Such as political career and poetic career was of this poet Sarojini Naidu. So dear students, let's come on and now know about the poem Song of Radha, the Milkmaid. This poem is from the Indian folk songs in the Bird of Time that was published in 1912. In this poem, love of Radha, the milkmaid, to Krishna is presented. Radha carried curds to sell at the Mathura fair. She was lost in the world of her beloved Lord Krishna. The setting of the poem grows her love to Krishna. This poem is in 3 stanzas having 3 situations. Use of simile, alliteration and synecdoche such as figures of speech are there. Pictorial quality to describe the scenes. Use of refrain Govinda Govinda increases devotional effects. Repetition of words enhances musical effect. Radha was unconscious to herself in extreme love and she did not care of the world in her love to Krishna. These are the main points about the poem. So dear students, now come on to the poem. Let's explain. I carried my curds to the Mathura fair. Here the speaker is Radha herself. She is describing 3 events here, 3 situations. In the first stanza, she describes a situation in Shravan. In the second, on Vasant Panchami, and in the third, Nag Panchami. So, dear students, in this first stanza, there is the description of Shravan. So she says, I carried my curds to the Mathura fair. I carried my curds to sell. You know, Radha was from Barsana, so she went from pastoral area to the city. That is a symbol of fertility and abundance. So she carried her curds to sell in the fair of Mathura. In this poem, Radha, the milkmaid, is lovesick to Krishna. She is from Barsana and going to sell her curds in a fair in Mathura. So dear students, while going there, every scene reminds her of her beloved Lord Krishna. She describes the scene of Shravan in the first stanza. What does she say? I carried my curds to the Mathura fair. Radha says that she carried her curds to sell in a fair that was being held in Mathura. And while going on the way, she saw some heifers. They were lowing in the fields, and the sound was very soft. And in such as an atmosphere, she says that she wanted to cry her trade cry, to sell her curds. Who will buy the curds that is white as the clouds in the sky? That the curds are so white as the clouds in the sky. She wants to tell this, but she couldn't. Why? because her mind was engrossed in the love to Lord Krishna. And she also wanted to say, when the breezes of Shravan are blowing, that is, it is the time of Shravan, when the cool air is blowing. Who will buy these curds? कौन खरीदेगा कर्ड्स को जबकि सावन की ठंडी हवाएं चल रही हैं? She is nervous. But my heart was so full of your beauty, beloved. She next says, my heart is so full of your beauty, beloved. I wanted to cry but couldn't, because my mind was much busy in your love. So, she says, they laughed as cried without knowing. When I cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 people started laughing at her. Because they were conscious, but Radha was unconscious of her own entity. And that's why she is lost in the love to Krishna. She cannot express her mind because her mind is absorbed in her love. In this video, students, you can understand it here how much love, the intensity of love is here. Next, you should also know that she gives an example of simile, of figure of speech, in that is white as the clouds in the sky. That is, she is comparing her curds to the clouds in the sky. Clouds are as white as her curd. In this stanza, she tells us the event of spring season. She says how softly the river was flowing. The river was flowing very softly. The river Yamuna. Everything that she depicts here are associated with Lord Krishna. That is, the cows, the city of Mathura, river Yamuna. So, these all create a scene, a setting of love to Lord Krishna. So, she says, how softly the river was flowing. I carried the pots to the Mathura tight, and I carried her pots of curds to the Mathura tight. Tied here, the river Yamuna. How gaily the rowers were rowing, and there the rowers were rowing their boats cheerfully. My comrades called, and my mates, my fellows called, oh, let us dance, let us sing. Because they were also cheerful. And we wear saffron garments to welcome the spring. And they suggested to wear saffron colored garments to welcome the spring season. And pluck the new birds that are blowing. And they also suggested to pluck new birds that are blowing in the spring season. You know, in spring season, new birds begin to blow. But my heart was so full of your music, beloved. But my heart was so full of your music, beloved. Music of flute of Lord Krishna. They moved when I cried without knowing. The people mocked at her. They humored her when she cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 Govinda. That is, she is so busy in the love of Lord Krishna that she is unconscious of herself. Such as eternal, such as immortal love is presented here. How gaily the river was flowing. The river was flowing smoothly, cheerfully. I carried my gifts to the Mathura shrine. and in such a time I carried my gifts to the Mathura temple. How brightly the torches were glowing, and there the torches were glowing brightly in the temple. I folded my hands at the altars to pray, and I folded my hands at the altars before the image of God to pray. O shining ones, guard us by night and by day. And she prayed to God for her protection. And loudly the conch shells were blowing. And there in the temple, the conch shells were blowing loudly. But my heart was so lost in your worship, beloved. But in the temple also, where prayers were being done, her heart was so lost in the worship of Lord Krishna that she cried without knowing, Govinda, 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 Govinda. And at this people were angry because they are praying and she created disturbance. So the people in the temple were also angry because she created disturbance to her. So far as Radha is concerned, she was very unconscious to her own identity because of the love to Lord Krishna. Such as immortal love, such as selfless love is presented in this poem, Song of Radha, the Milkmaid. Critical analysis of the poem. Sarojini Naidu selects three different situations to present Radha's love for Govinda. Radha reacts oddly in these situations and becomes a laughing stock among her mates. These situations are: first, the fair during the month of Shravan, Vasant Panchami to wear saffron garments, Nag Panchami puja in temples. Figures of speech. Simile: as white as clouds in the sky. Alliteration: carried curds, my Mathura, breezes blowing, but beauty beloved, rowers rowing, comrades called, saffron spring. In this way. Assonance: I cry by sky, I my tide, I my shrine. In this way. Synecdoche: part represents whole, as in tide for river. Sarojini Naidu has made a remarkable user repetition, as in I carried my to the Mathura, beloved, and but my heart was so full of. These lines are repeated thrice. The refrain Govinda increases the intensity of love of Radha. Thus this repetition creates harmonious and forceful presentation of ideas. Pictorial quality. Sarojini Naidu depicts the scenes as they are happening before our eyes. Radha is carrying her carts to Mathura fair. The cows are lowing in the fields. Breezes of Shravan are blowing. The ferry boats, Yamuna river, scenes of maids, temple and torches. These all visualize the scenes before our eyes. Summary of the poem. Radha, the milkmaid, is the speaker of the poem. She lives in Barsana near Mathura. Her beloved Krishna lives in Mathura. She goes to sell her curds to Mathura, where spring fair is going on. Cows are lowing softly in the fields. Radha tries to give her trade cry to sell curds which are as white as clouds, but instead she cries the name of her beloved Krishna. Everyone laughs at her. She is lost in her love to Lord Krishna. Radha reaches at the bank of the river Yamuna to cross it by the ferry boat. Her female companions want to wear saffron garments, the color of spring. They want to sing and dance together. They also want to pluck new birds of spring. Radha's heart swells with the music of Lord Krishna. She again cries in ecstasy when others mock at her. The river flows on joyfully, regardless. Radha reaches temple with her gifts. The torches are burning brightly in the temple. She folds her hands to pray to the deity. She prays for the protection when the conch shells are blown. But her heart is so lost in the love to Krishna that she begins to chant again the name of her beloved Krishna. People become angry, but she cares for nobody in her extreme love to Krishna. The river flows on and its water dazzles with the light of the torches. So dear students, you have studied this poem with introduction to the poetess, then introduction to the poem, the interpretation of the poem, critical analysis, it is a summary. So dear students, I think you will understand this poem thoroughly. So keep studying with me. Thank you very much.